It's been a whirlwind 24 hours. How are you feeling?
I'm quite exhausted. It's been quite a shock, despite the fact that we knew that the Queen had lived a very long and full life. We all knew this moment was coming, and yet there was a real sense of sadness when the news finally broke. And I think we knew something was amiss, obviously. Seeing everyone here today as well is really bringing the emotions through.
Yes. And the Queen meant so much to so many people. What did she mean to you?
I think, the word icon is overused in our society, but she genuinely was one. And she has been in our minds and in our identity for all our lives. Most people in this country have only ever known one monarch. And I think it was reassuring, and it gave us a sense of stability to have her here. And we're now in a time where we have a brand new Prime Minister and a brand new Head of State at quite an unsettling time in history. And I think that's going to make people feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. And just tell us a little bit about what we can expect to see today, kind of the order of things, because it's something we've never known to happen.
We're going to see the new King. He is going to be in London with the new Queen Consort Camilla, and that is his first public appearance as King Charles III. This is a really historic moment and a deeply significant one for him. He's spent his whole life preparing for this moment, and yet he has just lost his beloved mother. So you can only imagine how much pressure he's feeling under right now.
Of course, and what do you think is going through his head as he's having to make these arrangements? Obviously, it's been in preparation, but I'm sure nothing can prepare you for that kind of duty.
Absolutely, and I think, the Prince will have been very much on top of his mother's condition. Nevertheless, it's still absolutely heartbreaking when it happens. He has had the longest apprenticeship in history as an heir to the throne, and yet, this is a huge time of personal sadness for him. So he's trying to balance his sense of duty in the way his mother did with his personal feelings.
So we're expected to hear from the new King. What can we expect to hear in his speech?
I think Charles is going to obviously pay tribute to the Queen, and I imagine he is going to put out there, his dedication to the British people, to the Commonwealth, his hopes for how his reign will be, and he's going to set out his stall really as monarch. And this is something he'll have been thinking about for a very long time, and yet he'll have been poring over this, for many hours to make sure he gets it right.
Yes. And are we expected to hear from any more of the royal family within the next coming days?
I would imagine we will hear from other children of the Queen, possibly the Earl and Countess of Wessex, Prince Andrew potentially, and of course the Princess Royal. Whether that's in statements or video messages remains to be seen. They may speak to members of the public if they are out in public. We should also hear from grandchildren in due course, but there is an order of precedence, so usually the children will speak first and then grandchildren.
Okay. And obviously Balmoral, it does hold a little bit of sadness for Prince Harry and Prince William, as that's where they heard that their mother, Princess Diana, had passed away. So how do you think they must be feeling being back in Balmoral under these circumstances?
I'm sure there was a big sense of déjà vu for William and Harry. One of the most painful times in their lives occurred while they were on holiday at Balmoral, and that won't have been lost on them when they travelled back there to be at the Queen's bedside. And it must have been incredibly sad for everyone involved. But it was the place she loved, the place which her grandchildren have said was one of the most beautiful in the world. And I'm sure they'll take comfort in knowing that she was in such beautiful surroundings.
Of course. Do we know if Princess Eugenie has flown back from Lisbon?
I don't have confirmation of that, but I can imagine that all the family want to be together at this moment.
Yes. And will Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan be extending their stay in the UK?
I understand that Harry and Meghan will be staying on in the UK until after the funeral. We don't have word yet on whether they might bring Archie and Lily over and whether there will be movement between both countries in the meantime. But it's fair to say that they obviously want to be present for the Queen and pay tribute to her.
The Queen travelled to Balmoral not long ago. Do you think that she would have known maybe that this would be her last journey up there?
Look, I think at 96, and given how frail she had become in recent months, then I'm sure people's minds were on that, the fact that this might be her last visit. And certainly for those of us who were here just a few months ago when she appeared on the balcony, now knowing that was the last time that was going to happen is very poignant.
Yes, definitely. And what do you think the Queen meant to the British public? I mean, it's evident today with everyone here that she meant a great deal, but how do you interpret that?
I mean, how do you sum up the Queen and what she means to all these people here? You just have to look at the crowds to realise how significant her reign has been, how much people love her and loved her, and the great respect they have. Even people who aren't monarchists and don't believe that we should have a royal family have huge amounts of respect for just the fact that she gave us so much stability, and she was a constant in an ever-changing world.
Yes. And do you think the kind of pouring tributes from everybody is a good reflection of her reign as a whole?
Absolutely. I think those of us who've been writing about the royal family for a long time always knew that people would be somewhat taken aback by this moment, and I think a lot of people will find themselves reacting quite emotionally when perhaps they didn't think that they would. But for the Queen, symbolises so much for people. For many of us, she was of the generation of our grandparents, and she also was one of the last survivors of that wartime generation. And so people really have felt connected to her in a way that goes beyond her just having been the Queen.